What's up, everybody? Jake, your resident content cowboy here, Yeehaw, and I'm over here on warcraftrumble.gg to show you units that you can slot into any deck and start winning games. These are the most versatile, overpowered units inside of Warcraft Rumble. Let's take a look. Almost didn't get through my sentence there. I said like Vrumble. Our number one, almost, I think with a bullet, most overpowered unit in Rumble, but there are a lot of them that slots into just about anything that is going to be thrown at you, is a Quillboore. Quillboore is insane. It is a 2-cost unit that is unbound. You can play it anywhere on the map. That's what unbound means. And it's nice here over on warcraftrumble.gg. They're not the sponsor of this video, but they have a lot of nice features. They'll tell you what each one of their traits means. So this unit's resistant, so it takes less elemental damage. It happens to be a tank, which just means it has a lot of HP. It's single target, it's melee. It's also classified as a cycle unit because it's 2 cost. If you're looking for which talent to put on to our Quillboore, I would highly recommend Tunnel Vision. It just lets you pop out of the ground super fast. You can use this to deny your opponent's miners. You can use this to get to a chest very, very quickly. You could also just use this so you can start attacking better. Quillboore is great whether you are using it to get chests, acquire places on the map, or redirect opponents' aggro. It's like my favorite unit, and it slots into any deck in Warcraft Rumble. Our number 2 unit right here, the Safe Pilot. Safe Pilot, I mean, arguably could be better than Quillboore. It's a 3 cost that deals damage when it drops, so it's kind of like a spell. It's unbound, you can play it anywhere. You secure chests, you secure KOs. It has a few good talents as well. It's ranged and AoE, by the way, dealing elemental damage. It's so crazy good. Honestly, I think every unit on this list, by the way, has a huge possibility of getting nerfed. Seriously, there are some like real contenders for this thing is going to get nerfed immediately on this tier list. On this list, we've got our talents. Either Gnomish Cloaking Device or Coming in Hot, I think, are your best options right here. I think Gnomish Muttonizer actually is a decent talent. The others are just better. Gnomish Cloaking Device feels like it might be a little better for PvP. Coming in Hot, though, I've seen a lot of players using this lately, and it's great. You do deploy really, really fast, which is great for just not having to think so much about the positioning of Safe Pilot, and you're able to do a lot of damage when you land. So I actually think both of these have a lot of utility. I bet all 3 are pretty good, but I personally went with Gnomish Cloaking Device, and it's been great. Let's talk about our number 3 here. These are starting to get less and less in an order, but Welp Eggs. I mean, Welp Eggs are broken. The thing that's broken about Welp Eggs are Welp Eggs with Flame Burst. They're cheap, they cost 3, they land, and they can deal with, if a unit only attacks ground units, right? This thing is a counter to any unit like that. So Abomination, Molten Giant, Warsong Raider, like any unit, Sneed that just attacks only ground units will hit all of these eggs. They will then, if you're using Flame Burst, which is the talent, they will then explode, dealing damage to that enemy. They then become a flying unit, so they're not targetable by that enemy, and then they start just dealing crazy damage to it. This is amazing in PvP and amazing in the campaign and PvE stuff. It's truly one of the most busted things in the game. I bet Flame Burst is going to get a nerf. You could even raise the cost of this unit 1 gold. Like, raising unit cost is huge. You could even raise this 1 gold and it would still probably fit into most decks and be just overpowered. It's crazy, crazy good. They're incredible. All right, coming up next, we have the Harpies. Harpies are great, especially for the campaign and stuff like that, but they're also really good in PvP too. They attack super fast. They just rip things to shreds. They're great against nice pushes that are coming to your base where you've already dealt with some of their ranged units. So if you take something like Safe Pilot, land in their back line, take down, you know, their Blackrock Pyromancer or whatever's kind of back there, giving them tons of support, or even use a Quillboore to sort of pull that unit away and pull their aggro from the fight, and then you just drop these Harpies down, they'll just wreck tons. It's so fast. They do so much damage. Talents here, I've heard infectious swipes is kind of the go-to, and I think for PvE that makes the most sense. You know, like poison is amazingly strong. Trinket collectors is interesting, but it does raise the cost of Harpies. So they get to mine, which is awesome, but they also cost a little bit more. So you kind of lose a little utility there. And then Talon Dive seems like a good power, but I think infectious swipes feels like the way to go with these units. They're insane. All right, next on our list, boom, the Stone Hoof Torren. I did not realize when I first started playing Rumble how good the Stone Hoof Torren was, and then you start slotting it into decks in PvE and especially PvP. This thing is so good. The ability to close the distance with its charge move is amazing. It's single target damage, but it's very tanky. It charges into some of these like ranged units. It can set up situations where you make it to a fight, you know, just early enough to secure a chest or stop your opponents from securing, so it's now contested and you can bring other units in there to fight. The utility of charge is like unbelievably good, and the unit's just strong and super tanky. Stone Hoof Torren is such a great unit, and it's a really good unit where you think, oh, I want maybe Abomination or something, but it's so expensive, and you could just slot this in and you don't get the same exact effect or anything, but you get a lot of similar value to having some of those high level tanks. And this also has kind of an assassination ability connected to it. A lot of people really like momentum for this, which is when you charge, you can immediately charge another time. This sets up good situations where if there's something in that back line, you know, if they've got a Dark Spear Troll, you now charge to that and you're able to take that down. I think that sounds like a really cool move. I've not seen it enough in action to tell you which one is the best here. I feel like Pummel is also a great option for your team. Like a 3-second stun, if you dive into a Huntress or something like that, or you dive into an Ogre Magi, it's almost assured that you're going to take it down with that 3-second stun. So you're going to get a great trade right there. You know, you're going to take a unit that's 1 cost higher than you, and you're going to easily be able to trade against it. And if it keeps going, the next time it charges, it gets another 3 seconds. I think they're great options right there. Let's talk about our next unit right here. We're going to start getting into some interesting choices that I think maybe a lot of people aren't talking about as we continue this list. One of them that people definitely are talking about is the Huntress. I just mentioned it. Huntress is OP. It's so good. Look at this. It's fast. Crazy. It's resistant. Why? It's ranged, and it deals, it says AoE, but what it is it's kind of like AoE. It's that bouncing glaive that it has. It's so good. You know this. It's so strong. It's so annoying to deal with. It does so much damage. I think all 3 of its talents are good. I think the most useful ones are Elven Might and Shadow Meld. So let's talk about, so first off, Darnassian Steel. Glaive bounces an additional 3 times. That's sick, but it's not as, it's not going to be as common as you think. It might actually be more common in the campaign in PvE than it is in PvP. It's rare that you're fighting so many units that you need that glaive to continue bouncing to every single thing around. However, when it does bounce like that, I bet it's so cool. I do not have that talent. I went with Elven Might, which I think is extremely strong. The thing about Elven Might is it's always going to provide you value. Shadow Meld runs into this as well, but it's always going to give you good value because it's just more damage to the first target you hit. In fact, it's a lot more damage to the first target you hit, and it lets you start getting rid of waves a lot easier, and you can start trading with units that might get you, you know, there are some units that kind of like, I feel like Dark Spear Troll, it outranges Huntress, and I think if it's set up properly, it can kind of trade with you. So you could take a 3-cost Dark Spear Troll and you can take down a 5-cost Huntress, but you run into situations where that's not as easy with Elven Might. Shadow Meld kind of runs into the same thing. So it's stealth, so things that outrange you aren't really able to get that first attack on you. You get the first attack, which can also just set up some really incredible situations for Huntress. Huntresses, I mean, yeah. This thing's great. Moving on to our next unit, I want to get into some more interesting choices that you may not be using, and that is Earth Elemental. I think Earth Elemental is actually very good. It's unbound, you know, put it anywhere on the map. It's armored, and it is siege, and it's a siege specialist. So that means it's only attacking towers and bosses in PvE. but it actually is really nice just because it's a massive tank that can draw aggro from your opponents. It's very, very cheap, and you can use it to just aggro a tower or situation and have all of your other units fight. Having a unit that you can throw anywhere on the map, gain the attention of the enemies around it, and just tank a ton for the team is really incredible. And Earth Elemental does that. Not only that, it also does some decent damage to the structures that it runs into. So you can use this really well. You know, you've got a push, you've got, let's say you don't have a strong push, you just have a Blackrock Pyromancer walking towards a tower, and you know it's not going to get enough damage in there, it's not going to do anything. You can take an unbound unit like an Earth Elemental, just drop it right next to the tower before the tower aggroes and, you know, locks onto that Pyromancer, and now all of a sudden you could be able to take down this situation just simply because the tower is not focused on your ranged units, and you could set something up really well. I think a few of the talents are actually really strong here. Obsidian Shard feels like the no-brainer. Like, taking any talent that, again, you never have to think about and always provides value. When this thing gets killed, it splits into 2 smaller Earth Elementals. That's just great. It's just really solid to have more units on the battlefield, just more things for enemies to possibly deal with and fight, and not be focusing on your backline units. And then I think Ready to Rumble actually is a good option right here as well. Taunt on deploy just sets it up where even if you've not set it down in time to really aggro the enemies, you can set up Ready to Rumble, set it, you know, slightly behind your opponents, and then they have to now turn around, focus all their energy on this dumb Earth Elemental behind them, while your team is going to be just ripping through them from the other side. So I actually think both those talents are pretty good. Shrapnel Blast is just so situational. I can't recommend it. Maybe the damage is amazing. I see no one run it. It's so rare that you're gonna run into this situation. All right, our next unit that I think actually works really well in a lot of decks, and I think the biggest reason is because it's flying, ranged, and it has a low cost, is Griffin Rider. This is not a super OP unit by any means, but it slots into lots of decks, and it works really, really well. Having a unit that's flying and range means that many enemies just can't hit it a lot of the time, and having a cheap unit that you can just cycle through is really useful. I personally went with the Mighty Throw talent here just to give it 3 extra range, which is really nice. I mean, 3 range in this game is absolutely massive. Odin's Fury also seems like a decent option. I almost called it a decent option, but Mighty Throw feels like the way to go for a unit like this. Again, this isn't the most broken unit in the game. It just slots into so many decks so easily, and it's an easy flying unit to throw in. Here's another unit that I think doesn't get a lot of love, but actually works really well, and that is the Wargan. The Wargan is a 3-cost unbound unit, and it's great for assassinating targets that you really need to deal with, like, again, those backline mages. This can just be set down, it's stealth, it has ambush, so because it has ambush, it is dealing double damage when attacking from stealth. You're going to throw it down right there. It is going to pop out of the shadows, and it's just going to rip down one of their, you know, strong damage dealers in the back line and set you up for some amazing plays. It's also really good for getting chests and taking down, you know, single enemies that are walking towards a chest. You can use it to deny gold in some really good ways, and just unbound units are really strong. I picked the Lone Wolf talent for this, and I would highly recommend not picking the Lone Wolf talent. The range of the on deploy is so huge that for many decks, you just don't get a ton of value out of this. I think the real option, premeditation, for sure. Just increases ambush damage, so it makes it easier for you to drop it in that backline and rip down something really, really powerful. And if you don't have something like we talked about earlier, like Quillboore, I think this is a really good shot to just throw something in your deck that you can position anywhere on the map and gain big, big advantages. So there you go. There is a list of units that you can really just slot into any deck in Warcraft Rumble and get a ton of value out of. What do you think I missed? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I love you, and I will see you all next time. We did it.